Welcome everyone to the first ever episode of the Josh Robinson Show here on the Josh Robinson 00 Network. Yes, you're hearing me back on the Josh Robinson Show with this new look Josh Robinson Show. A little bit of a new feel, taking a little bit more of the, less of the pop culture-y stuff and taking on topics that are a little bit more important to me in the sense of just a little bit more serious and a little bit more something I feel like I want to talk about and just something different. So you're going to catch the Josh Robinson Show right here on the Josh Robinson 00 Network every single Wednesday. So that's where you're going to catch this. You're listening to the first one now, and I had to, it's go big or go home, right? Like, you know, you've got to really capture people's attention and come back strong. I haven't done an episode of the Josh Robinson Show in about 3 or 4 weeks. So this is the first time I'm sitting down to actually record this show, so this is going to be really fun. But of course, you've seen the title, you've seen all over Twitter. I'm sure I've put tweets about this leading up to the big debut on the network. So I do have the one and only Queen here with me. Queen, how are you on this fine evening, your time?
I'm so good. How are you this fine morning, your time?
I am doing well. Well, first and foremost, first time ever, Queen, welcome to the Josh Robinson 00 Network.
First of all, I have to say, big congratulations. You had us all reeling and trying to figure out what was going on, all these cryptic messages and videos, and who knows what's going on. And I feel like you still have tricks up your sleeve, Josh. That's what I feel like.
I'm a true wrestling fan with all those vignettes, hey?
You are. You really are showing the true colors of how much of a fan you are. But I love it. I'm so happy for you. I'm so excited for all these shows. And oh my God, so much fun.
Thank you very much for that. I did keep everyone on edge. Here's a little behind the scenes thing. Queen was the first one to know. She was the first one to get any kind of scoop on what was going on because
I didn't even tell anybody.
No, and Queen kept her mouth shut, and that's what I was like. Yep, you're good. You're a good egg. You're a good egg.
I'm a real one.
But it is, of course, Queen. I have you on here for a very good reason. It is, of course, Women's History Month. The month of March is celebrating women, and I think we should celebrate women. I would think we should just celebrate people 12 months out of the year, but it is very special to have Women's History Month, and but we'll dive into some topics really soon. But Queen, Women's History Month, how important it is for you to celebrate Women's History Month?
Oh man, it's super important, and I agree with you. Firstly, we should celebrate people all year round, but
Yeah.
you know, it's kind of like your birthday. There's only one per year, and that's how I feel about Black History Month or Women's History Month or whatever it might be. I just want to celebrate people, and I want to celebrate specifically women. And as a woman, this is vitally important in our 2020 year.
Yeah, it really is. 2020 is, we've come so far in the terms of gender and race equality, but I still think there's a ways to go, which we'll touch on soon. But as a kid, as a little girl, was Women's History Month something that you looked, or International Women's Day probably really wasn't a thing until a little bit later on, really, was it? But celebrating being, growing up as a teenager and stuff like that, did you celebrate things like, did you think it was important to be a woman in growing up and being like, okay, it's pretty cool to be a woman in this time, knowing where we've kind of come from? When did you kind of learn the kind of history of women and where they've come from where we've been even only 40, 50 years ago to now?
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. I was born in 1986, and I was born to wonderful parents, but very traditional, old school parents. My dad's Irish Catholic. My mom's Italian, Sicilian Catholic. So it's about as old school as you get. Yeah. And the mentality is very different. I was always encouraged to get an education. And I was the first person in my immediate family on my mom's side to go to college and graduate college. I was the first person to get a master's degree on that side of my family. I was the firstborn on that side. And my dad's side, we're like in the middle kind of. But for me, that was like a really big deal. And I was always supported in like, get your education. It's very important that you get an education, and all that stuff. But traditional in terms of, men led the household and, it was tradition. And Mr. Queen still finds this funny today. Like when we go over to my grandma's house, after we eat, the women go into the kitchen and we have our own little like session while the guys play cards or drink their after dinner drinks or whatever they're going to do. It's very separate still that way. It's just kind of the mentality and culture that I grew up in. And the women kind of took care of the dishes and did that whole thing, and my mom stayed home, and that was kind of expected. And it's very interesting when I think about it now that I'm 33 and I look back on that, and it wasn't like I was encouraged to do women's work, put it
Yeah.
that way,
Yeah.
but it definitely was something I was shown.
It
So,
was definitely something that was in the forefront of your mind
hmm,
through just
absolutely.
traditions of your
Hmm.
parents. I grew up in a
Yep.
non-religious household. I've never been one to be religious or anything like that. So I've grown up, but it's different because it's easy for me to say, oh, you've grown up like this and this is the way your traditions have taught you. But as much as a lot of men don't want to admit this, I'm a white male. I have a lot of privileges that
Hmm.
someone of color does not have. Some women do not have. I understand the gap's a little bit different now, but I've grown up in just being like, oh, it's easy. Everyone's equal, but it's easy for me to say. I've never had to
Sure.
experience being a woman, being someone of color. So I've grown up in a very like, I can do what I want kind of world. And I'm sure you were as well. I'm not saying that at all, but I
Yeah,
didn't have
yeah,
that background of being. My parents are not religious at all. We've never been a religious family, so
yeah.
I have that privilege of being a white male. So it's different.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, I have my own privilege as a white
Yeah,
woman.
exactly.
It's
Yeah,
different. It's different than your experience, but
yeah,
it's still the same for me. For women of color and
yeah,
different socioeconomic circumstances, like that's always different as well. Though I didn't grow up very wealthy, I did grow up being able to do what I'd like to do, and that is not everybody's experience.
yeah,
And that was really put into my worldview when I got into high school, and I really started to love learning about history.
yeah,
I'd always liked it as a child, but in high school, I kind of dove into that. And it was my favorite subject in school. And my favorite teachers were history teachers. And, it was so cool to read books. And I loved to read. And I was hungry for knowledge and really learning about the struggle of women's rights and understanding that this year in 2020 will be 100 years for women's voting rights in the United States. When you think about that, that is not a lot of
it's
time.
not. I
If
was
you
just about
look
to
at all
say
of human history,
it's not.
yeah,
100 years is basically yesterday. You know what I mean?
right. And putting aside the fact that the United States is a quote unquote new country, right? It's
Yeah,
not as doesn't have as rich of a history as, let's say, some countries in Europe
yeah,
do, but still for at a it's like less than half of its life, women had no rights here in terms of like marriage and like
yeah.
divorcing their husbands and owning their own property and having a say in their governments. And it like that, when I first really looked at that, that shocked me.
Yeah, because as a,
Yeah.
13, 14-year-old, 15-year-old in
Yeah.
high school going through and learning about women's history, I mean, we learnt women's history at school as well. Um, so it's like not like I didn't know these things, but as a woman growing up, you're going, wow, at that point, 70, 80 years ago, 90 years ago, women could not vote in this country. We couldn't actually have a, a chance to elect a president. So that's
Yep.
it's pretty crazy that you have that privilege of being able to go and vote for your president or whatever it may be. Um,
Hmm.
it's so weird to look at the world in this day and age, and there's countries in this world that have different standards with when it comes to women. We'll focus
Absolutely
on
right.
that, and you look at it and you go, "Oh man, that's like why not just change that?" But it's so hard to change a culture.
It
But
is.
talking about kind of women having the right to do we're in a world now where, especially in the Western world, I should say, where it's we're much closer to. I don't think we're at true equality with everything yet, and I think there is still a ways to go, with gender equality, race, whatever it may be.
Hmm.
But as right now, when you're like looking around, do you feel pretty equal to? You feel like you can kind of you have the same right as any man, as any person. Do you feel like we are on an equal playing field in this day and age?
I definitely agree with you that it's better than it was. And I feel like we're on a good trajectory. I want it to continue on that trajectory because there's still a lot of bias and prejudice and, equal rights for trans women and trans men and the
Yes.
LGBTQ community, I feel like is severely lacking. And there's such a disparity too between culture and race. And there's a lot of work to do. But I
Mm-hmm.
also feel like, at least in my personal experience, when I go to work every day, I don't feel belittled or pushed aside by the majority of my coworkers. I'd say there's probably one or two that are very like anti-female, but that's just I think their mentality and the way
Yeah.
they've grown up. I don't think that's a representation of everybody, if you understand what I'm
It's
saying.
the minority,
But
yeah.
it's a minority. It's a
Yeah.
very small group.
Yeah.
For the most part, women in my industry are celebrated and looked to often for leadership opportunities, and that's something that I can say that I'm proud to be a part of, and I love that to have a company. And businesses and small or large run by women, have CEO women,
Yes.
have women in admin positions. That's really dope, and that's the kind of stuff that I'm really proud to say, yeah, I feel pretty good about it. And while there is, I still think, some pay disparity with certain jobs,
Yes.
I think it is getting closer to equal pay, but
Yeah.
we're not quite there yet.
Yeah, I agree with that. I this is on a smaller scale, but I work in a retail store. Everyone kind of knows that. My manager is a woman. She is only a few years older than me, to be completely honest with you. And the last three different managers that I've had at that store have all been women, and it's just
Nice.
it's becoming way more normal. Usually you would walk into 10, 15 years ago, it'd be like it's a man in charge, and we're getting
Mhm.
to this stage where it's becoming more of the norm. It's not being like, oh, it's ooh, it's a woman in charge, here we go. It's like, no, it's just normal. We should always be like that. Again, I've grown up in my mum is someone that has really installed with me that women and men are equal. You don't treat people by their gender. You treat people by their person. So
Mhm.
I kind of treat everyone on an equal playing field. But again, it's different for me because I'm not in a woman's shoes. I'm not a woman to be able to go, okay, is there any kind of weirdness or any kind of anything going towards me because of my gender? Have you had any experiences in your life where you've been mistreated just for the fact that you are a woman?
Yeah, I have. I've had several jobs that have been male dominated, and they kind of just expect you to fill roles, or like even in friend groups that I've been a part of. Not necessarily my friends now, but groups that I used to be a part of. The guys in the group would sort of like expect that the girls would fill certain things. Like if we were all living together, for example, the girls would be in charge of cleaning and cooking for the house and doing all that stuff. And that was like a typical expectation,
Hmm.
instead of like them, like you live here too kind of thing. Like
Yeah.
you have to carry your own weight. But they felt like, well, we're the men, we'll take care of like the hard stuff. Like we'll change the light bulbs, and we'll fix the things that are broken, but like you guys can clean and keep everything together. And that's the kind of stuff that I was like, meh, I mean, like, I'm not your mom.
Yeah.
So
I
no.
mean, your boy over here can't even put together a chair from like IKEA, so I can't do anything properly. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
um,
but I mean that's like this a silly example,
yeah,
but
yeah, I
like,
get you.
in the workplace, like when to be in a workplace and have the same equal education as men and to be qualified for the same position but not get it, and they get a quote unquote promotion, if you will, and because they're a male and that's what they've wanted, or to be in a position where you have the same education value, you're performing the same job, but your opinion is less valued and you're criticized more, or when you feel passionately about something, I've been told several times, like, you got to slow your emotions down, kind of like that whole conversation of
Yes.
women are too emotional, and you don't need to raise your voice, even though I'm just being passionate about what I think needs to happen.
Just
It's still a
showing a bit of
professional
care.
environment. Right. I'm not like screaming. I'm
Yeah.
just like, listen, this is what I think we need to do, and da 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 da. But because I was too quote unquote forward and directive for a woman, that was not acceptable. And that was at one of the first jobs that I had, which was a male dominated little situation I was in. And that was like the first time where I said to myself, oh, okay, we're still stuck in 1950. Cool. Well,
Yeah.
it's 2008 at the time.
Yeah.
And, like, I can understand if it was because I had a lack of experience, or I didn't really know
If
what I
you
was
weren't right
talking
for
about.
the job.
Right. If it
Yeah.
if I wasn't right for the job, or I didn't know what I was doing, or I was just talking out of my ass, or whatever it was, that would have made sense to me. But the fact that we were all on the same playing field, but maybe some people had more experience, it was like you need to be quiet and just do what you're told to do, kind of thing. And that was the expectation. That was the first time that I saw something so blatant like that.
Yeah, I could imagine that it probably wouldn't make you feel very good. It'd probably be like, oh boy, like I'm just getting treated like this purely because I'm a woman. And it's just,
Yep.
again, stuck
He
in the
doesn't like
past.
women. Yeah.
Yeah, and
That's it.
I couldn't. There's not too many things worse in this world for me than a sexist person that just treats someone just because you're a woman, you do this. You're a man, you do this. It's just, I can't get my own brain around it because I've just never been in that mindset. But it still does happen. I've seen it happen, and it's just like, there's really no words to really describe it other than just like, shut the fuck up kind of deal. But
Yeah, sure.
yeah, but it is crazy to think, when you say things like that, women are too emotional, they're too this. I will not talk about politics too much. Don't worry, guys. It's not opinion based. This is just this. Hillary Clinton, from my understanding, ran for president in the last election, and she was getting quotes like from people, "You're too emotional, you're too forward, a woman can't run a country because of this." Australia has had one female prime minister back in 2010. We had Julia Gillard. She's the only female prime minister we've ever had. America have never had a female president. Do you think in your lifetime that you will see a female president in the United States?
I think I'm going to be older.
Okay.
But I think it's going to happen. Yeah, I think so. I just don't think America is quite ready for it right now.
No.
And if we continue down this path of divisiveness, and I'm not getting into politics,
No.
I'm just making an observation about
you.
what I see on a daily basis. If we continue down this path of divisiveness, I feel like people are going to double down on their nonsense. But I also feel like this new generation of children, it's very important for them to learn the right things. And I'm not saying what that is. I'm just saying human decency is a right thing.
I agree.
I think we can agree on that. And whatever belief it is that you have is great, but we don't need to breed and teach hate to children. That is not something they come out born with. That is something they've learned.
Oh my God, I'm glad you said that. Yeah.
And I feel like if more people were like your mom, who were like, people are people, no matter what race, gender, color, they could be purple. It doesn't matter. It matters what kind of person they are. And if that message can get home to this next generation of children, I feel like we'll be in a better spot. There's always going to be divisiveness. There's always going to be people who don't agree. There's always going to be hate and vileness in the world. But I think eventually the good can overcome that. And I'm hopeful that in my lifetime, I will see a woman running my country. I thought it was going to happen a couple years ago. And it didn't.
I thought it too. From someone from the outside looking in, I was like, well, clearly that's going to happen, but it just didn't.
It didn't. And the constant argument I hear is America isn't ready for a woman as a president. And what does that actually mean when people say that? What does that mean to you?
Queen, when Julia Gillard was running this country, when Julia Gillard was the Prime Minister of Australia, there was so much hate. I don't think people realized how many ads were run against the own Prime Minister of this country. As soon as she was in, people wanted her out, and it was that argument. This country, Australia, is not ready for a woman to be in charge. What does that actually mean? Because when you look at it, in the Commonwealth, it is run by the Queen. So is the Queen not in charge of... Is she not ready? Is the Commonwealth not ready for a woman to be in charge? It's like, okay, we're under the royal family. I understand there's different things, but you get what I mean. But it's just, there was so much hate towards it. And even something in 2010, you were literally 10 years ago, I was 14 years old and I seen that hate. And that's one of the first times I understand that 14's a little older, but as a teenager growing up and learning who you kind of are, that's the first time I can remember really seeing hate targeted just for the fact that she's solely a woman. And it kind of made me open my eyes. I'm not saying I'm happy that it happened at all, but I'm glad I seen that happen so I can go, that's wrong. Why are we only attacking her for that? No one was talking about the job she was actually doing. Everyone was just saying a woman's not ready for this job. And whether people in this country believe that she was right for the job or not, that was not what they were attacking her on. They were attacking her solely based on the fact that she's a woman. I don't know what you know about that, Queen, but when you hear that, and if you can see it from a different point of view of someone who is, was 14 years old at the time, what do you think that installs on that generation of kids in Australia? Because we're seeing history. We're literally living. I was living in history, being literally unfolding above, in front of me, with a woman running the country, and she was only in office for 2 years before she was elected out. So
Yeah.
we have
You
4-year
know,
terms. So it's like, wow.
that's crazy. That's crazy to me. It's such a weird dichotomy for me because hearing that, but then also knowing that I've heard as a little girl, and I'm sure you've heard it all the time, girls can do anything. You could be what you want to
Mm-hmm.
be, right? Boys and girls can do whatever they want when they grow up.
Yep.
But you were handed GI Joes and I was handed a Barbie, right?
Exactly.
And in like society kind of molds their expectations of what they expect you to do, or jobs that they find acceptable for you to do. For example, male nurses kind of frowned upon.
Yep.
I know several, and they say all the time that people make fun of them because they're male nurses, and nursing is a woman's job, right? Male teachers don't get it as bad, I feel like, because normally it's like a commodity.
Yeah.
There's way more female teachers than there are male teachers, and
Yeah.
I feel like they're a little bit more respected in that way. At least in, if we're looking at it from like a 2010
Yeah.
to now perspective, that's what
Yeah.
I'm thinking of. And um, I find that very hard to understand, of how you could send the message to children that you could be whatever you want to be when you grow up. And then at the same time, you're teaching these kids in Australia that because she's a woman, she's not prepared for this job. And what does that mean? And what are the effects of that onto your younger generation? Well, that's teaching girls that they can't aspire to be at the top because they'll get ridiculed and voted out, called too emotional. So that kind of messes with the psyche. And it's teaching young men that women can't handle positions of power. So that must be what we need to do because they can't do it, right? And I'm not saying every kid gets that message and that's what they take to heart, but it's what's being projected. It's what's being shown.
Yeah, and as a 14-year-old kid, Queen, like you're so impressionable at
You're
that time.
impressionable. You're
just
you're
ready
malleable.
you're like,
Right.
who am I? What are my thoughts? What are
Mhm.
my opinions? Because at that time, you're trying to do anything that you're just trying to go against your parents anyway, so you don't listen
Of
to them.
course. Yes,
So you're
of
just
course.
like, media is the ultimate form, especially in that time when, 10 years ago, when it was like, I was in that generation of like, we had phones, we had the internet, we were kind of that, a little bit after, but those first kind of teenage lot to really get all of that, and social media was blowing up and everyone was on that. So as soon as I open Facebook and see Julia Gillard can't run this country because a woman isn't ready, it's like, I don't know. I didn't know what to really take in that. Am I meant to believe that? Because I don't know any better at that age. Of course, as I've gotten older, I've realized that that wasn't the case at all. It was just more so people attacking her because of other things. But she wrote a book and kind of explained all in that, and how much pressure that was on her, because it was kind of a no-win situation for her. If you do a really good job, then there's all of these other people saying, but you didn't do this properly, you didn't do this properly. If you do a really bad job, then you're just living into everyone's, facade of a woman can't run this country. So it was like too much pressure. No one could abstain to that. It's just too hard to even come across. And, just all of that kind of stuff. But it is really, when you actually think about it, and I didn't really think about this until we actually started talking. Yes, we are in a better place now, and I feel like we're in a pretty decent place now, but there is still a long way to go. There is still so much to really get past, because while it's, we're having our own experiences and just chatting, there's probably so many things happening at this very moment that is purely based on this person is this color, or this person is this gender, or this person is gay, or this person is bisexual, or whatever it may be. It's I'm glad I'm in the mindset of, I just see people as people, and whether what their sexuality, what their gender, what their race is so irrelevant to me. If they're a good person, that's fine. The other stuff is just whatever. Not that I don't care. I don't care in a sense of like, it just doesn't matter to me, because it's
not your
irrelevant.
business, you know what
Exactly.
I mean? Like, that's their business, and I love that mentality, and that's something that I have as well. And I feel like we have to be really mindful with what we say and what we do, because especially this next generation of kids are really impressionable and young, and they're going to look to our generation and their parents and their grandparents for guidance as to how to be a person. Parenting is the biggest responsibility you could ever have. You're molding a young life
Yeah.
into being a human, and what kind of human do you want them to be? And I just feel like even right now, Josh, you know how much you and I love TikTok, right? It's
Oh,
hysterical. The funniest things are on there, but you know what else is on there? The most derogatory, hurtful, anti-female stuff I've ever seen in my life.
yeah. You scroll through some of that shit. I've seen that. I'm like, oh
These
boy.
song lyrics are so degrading. And you have these young boys and young girls hypersexualized before they're really ready, in my personal opinion. They're
Yeah.
too young, and they're getting like all these things shown and all these dances that they're doing. It's super inappropriate
Even
and
it's
like what?
hypersexualized for me. I'm like,
And I
geez,
mean, yeah,
Louise.
I'm like, I'm 33. Excuse me,
I'm
I
like,
can't even
cover
look
your
at it.
eyes. Like, I'm like,
I
go to
know.
bed, young lady. I'm like, what are you doing?
I know
Like,
she's so young. I'm like seeing 13-year-old girls on this app, and it makes me so nervous for them. And I'm like, wait a minute. And then, they idealize this, these couple of kids who are, getting the most quote unquote hype on this app. And they're like, this is what I aspire to be. And I have to be as skinny as her. And
yeah.
she's beautiful and I'm not. And, and then the social media stuff, Josh, I think is
Oh,
the absolute worst. It's the best thing that we have the internet, and it's the worst thing we have the internet, especially for, you
kids.
know, spe- kids, and especially for, we're talking about Women's History Month,
Yeah.
especially for girls. Girls are
And not
vicious.
only that is like,
Vicious.
10, 11, 12-year-olds now have a phone in their hand. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like
Too much power.
it's just I got a phone when I was about like I said, I was probably the first kind of that age of like getting them at a younger age and kind of that leading generation into where it's just even more now. But everyone knows I have a younger brother. He's 10 years old and he has a phone. He's able to go on TikTok. He's able to go on YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
and we've seen the internet. We've all been teenagers on the internet. We know what the internet can be. We're on the internet literally every day of our lives. It can be a pretty dark place when it needs to be. And it can be a great place, but if you don't know what you're getting yourself into, I'm pretty good in the sense of like I kind of know. You're probably the same, Queen, as like I know where to get away from that darkness. I know where to find the things,
Mm-hmm.
it's just I know how to navigate my waters. I know what I'm getting myself into. A 10, 11-year-old does not know what they're getting themselves into if they sign up for Facebook or if they sign up for Twitter, or just search on Google and find all of the crap that you can find on the internet, because it can be a pretty wild place. That kind of in my brain scares me, especially for young girls and young boys. But
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty scary to think that that generation of kids have access to that now. When
Yeah,
even from the age difference between you and me, Queen, we had different levels of access to a phone or to an
absolutely.
internet, and
Mm-hmm.
we're only 7 years apart, 8 years apart, something like that.
Yep.
So it's pretty wild, that we'll stick to the fact that we're talking about women's history, but young girls are getting that sexualized at that age, because
Mm-hmm.
that's you shouldn't be at 11, 12 years old watching stuff on TikTok like that or whatever.
No, I just
Um,
think that you should be a kid, man. Be a
yeah,
kid and live your life. Like sex and sexuality is a very important part of your life,
yeah,
but
definitely.
at 11 years old, that should not be something that you're worried about. And it should
No,
not be something that you're staring at a screen wondering if you should be doing the same thing. Like that message to me is just like wild. They're such babies.
yeah,
I think of my brother when he was 11 and like how I would feel if he was watching that kind of stuff, or if I had a child and they were, coming of age right now, teenage years, I would be terrified.
yeah,
And I just, and that's the kind of stuff, especially a young girl, it's funny what we say that we're talking about kids, but I feel like it also has a lot to do with us.
yes, it does.
Like all the time I say silly things to my girlfriends, like, what's up, bitch? What da, 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 da,
Yeah.
like being funny. I don't mean it as in you are a bitch, right?
No,
It's
I'm
like
the
a
same. I
slang
say all
term
the
for like,
same. So yeah,
oh, hey girl, like, what's
yeah,
up? That kind of thing. But then like the other day, someone and that I'm friends with and I were having a conversation, and she's like, "Do you remember back in like the early 2000s, we all called each other whores?" I
yeah,
said, "Yes. I remember that so hard, especially in college, and sluts and all these crazy
yeah.
things." She's like, "Why did we do that?" And I go, "To be honest with you, I don't know
You
because
think of even
that
like
was the
movies
stupidest
like
thing
Mean
ever."
Girls and stuff. They boo you
Yes,
whore.
boo you whore.
It's like
Yes.
that's just it's so in our vocabulary just to say that. And again, I'm the same as you. I've got a potty mouth. Everyone knows that. But
Yeah.
I say things and I don't realize that fact that if I was out in public and I said, "What's up, fucker?" or something like that, an
Yeah.
11-year-old kid could hear me. And if they're looking up to me, especially young boys looking up to a, you know, someone in their early 20s going, is that what I should do to be cool? Should I be learning to say slut and bitch and all of that kind of stuff at that age? So is that what I need to be doing? It is really weird when you think about it, isn't it? Because we just mean it in a fun way. Like, hey, bitch, that's just normal. But
Right.
for kids, it's very, again, impressionable.
I know. They're very impressionable, and some of it is funny, and it's not meant to hurt people. And like I totally understand that argument because I feel like, a lot of people are very sensitive these
Yes.
days, and we can't take a joke anymore, and I'm totally on that train. Really, I am.
Me too. I'm driving that train, to be honest.
I can't stand that kind of stuff. So we need to rebuild our thick skin in a way.
We need to
To an
relax a little
extent.
bit in some
Right.
areas.
To an extent. There are just things that just aren't acceptable to say.
No.
Period. Full stop.
Yes.
There are some things that should not be repeated, should not be said, and we need to treat people more with kindness. I also think, we thrive on humor, and laughing makes you live longer, and we have to lighten up in some respects as well. So it's a very delicate balance, Josh.
Where do we cross that?
Where's the line? Where's the line, and how do you determine what the line is? And like, I think it's important, especially for young girls, to have standards and to have expectations and to have a strong voice of this is what I will accept and this is what I will not accept. And I feel like that's a message that has gotten lost in a lot of ways that I would love to see be rebuilt for these girls. And even for girls my age, I'm in my early 30s, but I still would like that for everybody because I feel like we can be more empowered that way.
Yeah, and also not only that, in the sense of young girls having their voice and being like, this is what's acceptable, we also need to teach young boys that it's okay for women to say that and not say, you're being emotional. Or, one of the worst things I've ever heard, and this, I don't mean this is just what I've heard from other people, and it's horrible, when a woman is being passionate about something and then a man says, shut up, you're on your period.
Oh, God, I hate that.
For one, men have no right to say that because they don't fucking know what that is. So I've never said that in that sense of, I don't know what that's like, for one. For two, just no. That's not okay to say to all women and men, whoever's saying it, men especially. If you're saying that to a woman because they're being passionate about something and you're saying you're too emotional because you're on your period, please go away from me. Don't say that. It's not at all acceptable to say. I've heard that in the workplace.
Awful.
I've heard that.
Me too.
And it's like, no. And that's coming from
like,
a different
no,
point of
homie.
view.
Like, first of all, let me just tell you something. Okay. Queen's gonna get real for a second. So here's the deal with that. I can't stand when there's all these videos out and like trying to be funny about girls on their period and like how they're like crazy rage monsters and like all they want to do is eat food and they'll yell at you and like tear your heart out. Now listen, if you've ever had hormones in your body,
yeah,
you ever know what that feels like to have them drop and rise within 20 minutes? It's not easy to do. And yeah, girls could get a little nutty. And being a girl, I know how I am when that happens for me. It's a biological thing. It's science, folks. I hate to break it to you, but it's not going anywhere. So until the human race evolves and we decide to get rid of it, I don't know what to tell you. So, it is what it is. But that's the thing that's going to set me off is when a guy says that to me. That'll take me to the roof. Not even because I'm on it, just because that pisses me off
I'll
bad.
show you emotional, bitch. It's like,
oh, you want to see emotional?
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, let me whip your ass, and then we'll see how you feel about that, And then they'll be like, see, I proved my point. She's crazy, and it's like, oh my God, like you boys aren't psycho.
It's like, I'm moody every fucking 5 minutes. I'm in moods all the time, and I'm not going through that. I'm just. Everybody has hormones in their body, for one, so it's not like it's just exclusive to women to only have hormones. It's like, no, men, we get different stuff as well. It's just I'm glad that you're on the same page as me as that, because that just irks me, and I'm not even a woman, and it just pisses me off. It's like, I could never go, that's like ultimate low blow. Don't ever say that. It's just, no.
And like we can make fun of it though.
Oh yeah,
Like
make a joke.
it's a joke, but like don't be real about it.
No, don't be in an argument with don't be in an argument with a woman. Man, here's a lesson to you all. Don't be in an argument with a woman and they're getting a little bit. We're both getting in the argument and say you're too emotional because you're on your period. Because I would
Or
personally
are you on your period because you're acting crazy?
Yeah.
Oh no!
I would literally come to your house with a suitcase, pack your shit, and I'll get you out of there because you're not worth being in that home. But it's just, I don't know, it's just crazy. But when we think about media and you talk about TikTok and social media, something I did want to talk about is the Me Too movement that happened, last year before? Was it a couple years ago now?
Years ago. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I guess I'll let you kind of take the charge on what is Me Too to you and what exactly is the Me Too movement. When you first seen that, I believe, when did that all, it was at an award show, wasn't it, where it really came to fruition, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's when it started to get the most, I would say, traction. But
it's like
what
the
a lot
Oscars
of people,
or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like the Oscars. A lot of the women wore Me Too pins and things were coming out. I want to say it's like 2018 and 2019, or
Yeah.
2018 was a big year for it. I can't remember if it was 2017 as well, but I'm pretty sure it was 2018.
The years go that fast. We were just talking before about, guys, WrestleMania is 3 weeks away.
My God.
And we're like, it's happening again, we're here again. So time just kind of goes into one. But
it does.
What is your perception of what the Me Too movement is?
Sure. So, what I think a lot of people don't know is that the Me Too movement was actually started on MySpace in about 2006.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So it has roots very long time ago. It just didn't really get, I would say, as much attention and traction.
And guys, MySpace is this old social media platform where you can have music playing on your... I was on the very end of MySpace before I got into like Facebook and stuff like that. And then MySpace just... Poor MySpace. Rest in peace, MySpace. Much love.
I miss MySpace.
But yeah, MySpace...
The good old days.
That's what MySpace is. For anyone that's listening to this that's under the age of 20, it's gone... What the fuck is this woman talking about? What is MySpace? Yeah. She's making up
It was
shit.
the best. Look it up. I promise you. So the Me Too movement is really just a movement against sexual harassment and sexual assault.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
It took a international turn when very famous celebrity women and political women around the world banded together to wear these pins to support and give vocal visual support for this movement. There's a lot of, especially in the United States, there's been a lot of like Hollywood things where directors or producers have been accused of sexual assault or sexual harassment for a very, very long time. And no one believed these women, and they were, they're sexual assault survivors and victims, and their stories were not heard or not listened to. And things kind of blew up in that way where it got like international acclaim for people recognizing this movement. And it goes hand in hand with the Women's March that happened in our country on Washington, which was the biggest rally march in history. So that was pretty crazy. And just to see the overwhelming support for the movement itself, it definitely opened up doors, and a lot of lawyers volunteered to help. And a lot of organizations to help these women came out of the woodwork and really pledged their support and just tried to help. And lots of cases went to court for very famous people, like Harvey Weinstein, for example, was one of those. And it just was like this large push. I think it actually was in 2017, the big, huge Women's March.
Yeah, I'm thinking
it's 2017 to 2018 was the big time, because the 2018 was when it appeared at the Oscars. That's what I'm thinking, I think.
And that's when everyone kind of was like, whoa. That's when I kind of first... I think I heard about it maybe with the Women's March and stuff like that. There's always been kind of that in the last 5 or 6 years of women wanting more and women really vouching for equal pay and just that on that track. And when I seen about Me Too, and especially at the Oscars, is when I think when the world kind of really seen it the most, and having all of these very famous women step forward and say, this isn't okay. Or some of these women that you've known for years and been in multiple movies and TV shows, or musicians have been like, I'm a victim as well. And stepping up and being like, this happened to me. And it's like, whoa, it's like, because I think with Hollywood, if you will, I feel like we think those people are very protected, and nothing
Sure.
can ever go wrong with those kind of people because they live the glamour life. They're rich. They're famous. They're not going through sexual assault or discrimination or anything like that. You just don't think that happens, even though you've seen it. But you just go, they're living a good life. Everyone's kind of gone through that phase where they think that, and then you see all these women stand up and say, either just stand by these women or say, hey, this isn't okay, this happened to me. It's like, well, this really does still happen. It's even if it's happened 10, 15, 20 years ago, it's still happening now. It's still an ongoing thing. What was your kind of feeling towards that, seeing all this go down, and were you surprised that this was happening? What was the kind of general feelings that was going on with you seeing all that?
Um, I wasn't surprised. You know, being a woman, this is definitely an issue that is at the forefront of a lot of our minds, unfortunately. It's a very high statistic of sexual assault against women. And I wasn't really surprised, but it definitely felt empowered, and I felt like it was getting heard for the first time, at least in my adult life. It was getting a nationwide platform, and that I thought was just wild. I wouldn't say I was surprised. It was a flood of support, and also a flood of a lot of negative things as well, which I just don't agree with. A lot of people jumping to conclusions and, accusing men of doing things that they weren't necessarily involved in, or taking an allegation and running with it and trying to ruin people's lives and like that kind of stuff. I don't agree with. If you're guilty, you're guilty, but let's go through it the right way. And I know, unfortunately,
gender equality is not an attack against men.
No, right, and
I
definitely
just
make
think,
that clear.
yeah,
Mhm.
it's hard for me to say it out loud because some people would just be like, well, you're a man, so obviously you're going to say that. But in feminism and stuff like that, it's gender equality. Equality is equal, so you want everyone to be treated on an equal playing field. So
Mhm.
you don't just want to accusing someone of doing something they're not doing, is whether you're a man, woman, alien, whatever. That's not okay because you're falsely accusing people of doing ill will when they're not.
Horrible things, right?
And
I
it's
think you just
very
have to be
easy
very
to.
mindful of that.
Yeah, exactly. But again, this is not an attack against men at all.
Not at all.
However,
No.
men have had a privilege, and I can speak from experience, men have had a privilege a lot longer than women have had a privilege. And this isn't even speaking of race and stuff like that. I'm a white male. I have a lot more privilege in my life when I didn't even realize it. And
Mhm.
I think that's something that, when women are coming out, or even just people in general are coming out and being like, women, and doing all this, and men are like, well, I'm not doing that, so it's fine. It's like, no, maybe you're not doing that, but 20, 30 years ago, men were doing that. So you need to do something to stop that now. If that means standing up for women and that means standing up for gender equality, that's what you need to do. I don't like when men are like, but I'm not doing that now, so I need to do nothing. It's like, no, but you've had privilege without even realizing that you've had privilege for the last 20, 30 years of your life, however long you've been alive, is how long you've had male privilege. And I think that's where we get a little bit lost. Is like, oh, this is an attack against men. It's like, no, but men also need to help these women because we're all, at the end of the day, I've always said this, you've probably heard me say this multiple times, Queen, but I don't really see gender, I see people, and I love people for people. So it's not about being like women against men, or women need to do this, men need to do this. It's just people as a human race need to do this because it's the right thing to do.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that's really the message about the movement before it kind of got a little bit out of control, in just my personal opinion. The message is that we all need to work together to end these type of things. I shouldn't have to live in a country where a man is accused of raping a college student while she was passed out drunk behind a dumpster, and have evidence for that, and they go to trial and he gets probation and
Exactly,
gets
yeah.
nothing. Like, that to me is not somewhere that I want to live. I don't want to live in a country where the justice system doesn't protect me, doesn't protect other women, and doesn't protect men either. Because it's not
Yeah,
just
'cause
me and other women that have had these experiences or
sexual assault can happen both
experienced all
ways.
that. Absolutely,
It
it
can
can.
definitely happen both ways. And When you say stuff like that, that's what I think I mean by we still have a long ways to go. Yes, okay,
Sure.
on the Hollywood forefront and on the media forefront, yes, women are equal and we're getting towards equal pay and all of this kind of stuff, and
Yeah,
that's
no.
again fantastic. However, in our justice system, it's the same in this country, Queen. It's not
Mhm.
just exclusive to the United States. There's a lot of things that you're just like, but there's clear evidence. I could show you that this happened, and you're still going to be like, it's fine. It's fine.
Just boys being boys. That's the argument that I
I
hate.
hate that too.
I hate that. And it's and I know a lot of people are going to take what I just said of I don't want to live in a country that supports that. I love my country, so let's
Oh
not
yeah,
get that twisted. What I mean by that is that I shouldn't have to experience those type of things as a woman. My friends, my family, my strangers. It doesn't
no,
matter.
yeah, no,
It
I
just
agree.
shouldn't be a thing that's a reality. That our justice system, has failed women, has failed people of color, has failed indigenous population. It's failed a lot of people.
Yeah,
And while it's helped a lot, I would love to see the statistic of that sort of privilege go away. I
yes,
just think if it's wrong, it's wrong and it's wrong. And if you could prove that it's wrong, then they shouldn't get a pass because they're so young and it'll scar them for the rest of their life. Well, they made a choice to attack someone while they were unconscious because they thought that they could get away with it. So maybe they should have to receive some sort of punishment for that. And I
receive a
just feel like
consequence. You got to live
a
with that
consequence.
consequence.
You have
Yeah,
to live with their choices. And I'm not saying that, everyone's screwed and there's no redemption. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if you make a choice, you need to own that choice and you need to accept whatever consequence comes your way. And
yeah,
and that judge and that jury and whatever else it is, police officers, any other part of the justice system should be there to protect that
yeah,
right of the person who was victimized. And
exactly.
that's something that I want to see improve. Um, and I feel like there's a way forward that we can do that without creating kind of witch hunt vibe against
Yeah,
men. And I think there's a way that we can be successful in moving forward where we value the victim statement, we validate their feelings, and do the proper investigative research to make sure that that claim is true. Because it's a very serious thing that to charge someone with that. And
mm,
it's a very serious thing to accuse someone of that. And I feel like if anything is false, then that person who made that claim should be in trouble as well. It's a two-way street for me.
yeah. I agree because I think it's definitely not as bad, but it's definitely up there of like you're accusing someone of whatever. And you're falsely accusing someone to be trialed that way, therefore they could go to prison, they could go to
Mm-hmm.
jail for
Yep.
that falsely accused. And that's happened many times. It's not like that's just happening here and there. No, that's happened. It's still happening in this day and age.
Sure.
We're not away
Absolutely.
from that at all, because people think they can get away with it. And I think that's what you're kind of alluding to is the fact that
Mm-hmm.
people need to stop being able to get away with things they're doing or not doing. So
Absolutely.
I think we're definitely on the right track with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I still think we've got a long ways to go, especially when it comes to the justice system. So I hope we do move forward with that kind of stuff, especially talking about it in the month of March is very important. But we should be talking about it all the time. It shouldn't just be a thing that we just it's March, so Women's History Month. We need to talk about it now and then forget about it for 11 months. It's like no,
I agree.
we need to keep. It's important to celebrate, of course. It's important to talk about these issues. That's why I'm doing this right now. But we need to keep it an ongoing thing. It can't just happen, 31 days out of the year. But on to a little bit of a lighter stuff. Now that we've talked about all the heavy stuff, let's celebrate some women that have made an impact on us in our lives or in the media world or whatever. First and foremost, Queen. From one fellow Queen to another, we have to talk about Queen Bee, Beyonce
Can
herself.
we?
Can we talk about Beyonce for a minute? Because I think she might
Yes.
be the actual, literal queen of the universe. I'm pretty sure somewhere up there she's ruling it all. But
Pretty sure.
but let's talk about Hollywood and music and all of that kind of fun stuff for a little while when we think about women. Let's talk about women, the fact that they kind of low-key dominate the mainstream music world, I think. I think they dominate pop music, and they're definitely ones, you look at some of the most famous and successful musicians in the world, especially in this day and age. There's people like Beyonce we talk about, and Taylor Swift, Katy Perry, Lady Gaga, I guess the list goes on and on. But women are doing their thing, okay? And they have some bangers, by the way. I love some Lady Gaga. I'll turn on
Sure
some Lady
do.
Gaga. But women in media, women in Hollywood, who's some of the people that you kind of, I guess in a way look up to and just being like, that's a bad B right there.
um, in the music world, I have a lot of respect for Janelle Monáe.
Ooh.
I have a lot of respect for obviously Beyonce, and I have a lot of respect for Lady Gaga. But most recently, the one that I am just an absolute stan of is Lizzo.
Oh,
Talk
I knew where
about,
you were going. I knew where you were
I
going.
know, talk about a body positive, zero fucks given
Just be yourself.
confidence. She is absolutely 1,000,000% herself. And as a plus size woman myself, to see her performing on big stages, on big music celebrations, on SNL, and to watch her meteoric rise because of her voice, her personality, her chops on that flute, honey.
Oh,
And
she can
listen,
slay
like,
that flute.
she can slay that flute, and she is dancing and singing and being 100%, as she would say, that bitch. And
Oh,
you know
she is.
what? I have to give her an enormous amount of props. And for women like me who are plus size, for young girls who are a little bit bigger, that's the kind of model that I want to see in my life.
Unapologetically herself, and
Absolutely right.
I just love
Amen.
that. Yeah, I love that about
Learn
Lizzo.
to love
Just
yourself.
and
Yes.
not like doing it in a way where it's like sympathy. She's doing it in a way where
Nope.
it's like, no, bitch, this is who I
This is who
am,
I am.
and
Deal.
let me sing, let me rap, let me do my thing, and it's not important because it's just aesthetic at the end of the day, really.
Right.
If she's got talent, it shouldn't
It
be.
shouldn't matter, and that's what she's showing
10 years
everybody.
ago,
You're right.
when Adele was
Mhm.
slaying that, I mean, Adele's voice
What a
I could
voice.
just floating on a cloud, but everyone would say she's a bigger lady.
Yep.
Why is that important?
Who
For one,
cares?
you're on Spotify anyway or Apple Music and you're hearing it, so really you're not seeing it anyway. Secondly, it's not fucking important if she's got talent. she's
You gonna go?
she's a
You gonna go
singer.
say that to Aretha Franklin, Josh? You gonna go say that to her
Yeah,
too?
exactly. Like, it's like, I don't
Come on,
understand
people.
people. Someone that I
Get
do want to
off.
talk about being someone, I think importantly being a young role model in the world right now is Billie Eilish. She's
I love
someone that's,
her.
again, unapologetically herself. And also what I like about Billie Eilish is that she's made it on, she goes, I'm not going to wear clothes that kind of reveal myself too much. She doesn't like to do that because she thinks it's not a bad thing. I think she says, I'm paraphrasing here, but she basically said that I think that's what we focus on too much. How much skin
Yep.
can we see? How much of this? She wears hoodies, she wears track suits, she wears, very
Baggy clothes.
yeah,
That Chanel
baggy.
that she wore to the Oscars.
Damn,
Life.
slay. But Billie Eilish can. I mean, we talk about Billie Eilish a lot on Twitter.
We do.
We love Billie.
We love Billie Eilish.
I'll just go. What's your favorite Billie Eilish song?
Oh my
If
God.
you had
Well,
to choose.
right. Oh God. If I had to choose, I
If
think
a
I
gun
would
to your head, Queen. I've got a gun at
when
your
the
head, and
party's
I'm like,
over.
ooh, see, I'd probably go Ocean Eyes.
I love Ocean Eyes, but when the
Or
party's
Lovely.
over,
I do like Lovely with. Yeah,
Lovely is
that's
a good song. But I feel like when the party's over has such a strong message, and like Ocean Eyes is beautiful, and it's a beautiful love song, and it's nice, and Lovely is cool with Khalid, sorry, not DJ Khaled, I almost said DJ Khaled,
another
Khalid,
one.
but another one.
Oh.
But I feel like when the party's over has such a message that like you can relate to, because you never feel good enough for somebody sometimes. And it's like, oh, like, don't you know that I'm no good for you? God, I can't.
Yeah,
And then she
we've all
sings in
been there.
octaves. She sings in 2 octaves in that song.
Yeah, she can.
How, Billy?
Some people, I don't like
How?
people. When people are like, I don't think Billie Eilish is even that great of a singer. It's like, oh, bitch.
Watch the Grammys
Oh
and
yeah,
watch
No
the,
Time to Die, by the way,
Oscars.
guys, from the new James Bond film, is a fantastic song. I like how
Oh,
she
so-
brings a little bit of, because pop music, you'll probably agree with me, pop music can get very generic and very, it's just
Similar.
another song about drinking and song about having sex with one another. It's like, okay, it's fine, it's got a fine beat, and I'll happily just be like, yay. But Billie Eilish brings in it's kind of like a weird alternative pop sound. It's still pop
Yep.
and it's still mainstream enough to get to the masses. It's not like it's any like screaming or anything like that where some people are put off by that. But it's still, it's pop enough, but it's real pop. That's how I describe it's real pop music. That's that's the pop music that I adore. But she doesn't really fit into a specific genre of music, really. She has a bit of everything in there, and that's what I really like about it. And especially being, she's 17, I think? 18? 18 now?
Yeah.
That's...
18?
She's
18.
17 or 18?
18. I think she
18.
turned 18.
We'll just go with 18.
Good golly.
But that's just important to have girls especially look up to someone that's going, oh, she's only a few years older than me and she's doing it. You know what I mean? Like...
she's killing it.
Yeah, she's killing it. I love Billie. Before we move on from the media world, we talked about... we both mentioned Lady Gaga. I want to talk about Gaga because, for one, when I was in high school, Just Dance Poker Face was like what was tearing it up. All right, that was just, everyone was kind of on the same wavelength. It was like Gaga's just killing it. But yes, Gaga has great music. Quickly, let's talk about her music. If you had to pick a Gaga song, what's your go-to Gaga song?
Oh shit, go-to Gaga song. Oh, this is tough for me. You go first. Let me think for a second.
It's the, I don't know what it's called, but it's the nothing else I can say. That one?
Yes, I know.
Cherry, cherry, boom, boom.
Yes.
That one, I like that song.
Such a good one. I feel like if I had to pick one that I just feel like I connect with really hard, let's go with that. Judas.
Oh yeah. Not the Fozzy song, guys.
Not the Fozzy song.
Although that's a banger too, but that's for another. That's for
Chris
Jericho Appreciation Month.
Yeah, it's that one, or it's probably Alejandro. Don't ask me why.
I
think it's because of the music video.
Oh yeah, she had some great videos. I mean, Gaga was doing some shit before it was even cool to do weird shit. Really, she was.
And her version of "Shallow" from that song too. Oh, by the way, that movie, I can't.
Oh.
Sorry, go ahead.
So good. No, it's good. It's good. But for something that's more important with Gaga being just a strong woman in the world and in the media world where it's the most impressionable for everybody is that she is a huge advocate for women's rights and bisexual, gay, everything.
Yes.
She is just such an advocate of being truly 100% yourself, and she is that. She's always said, she goes, why do you think I wore the meat dresses and the bubbles and everything like that? It's because it's okay to do that if you want to do that. If that's you, do it. Be you. And I think she got a lot of people being like, oh, here we go, Lady Gaga's wearing a meat dress. And at the time, I'm sure you were as like, what the fuck is this? But when you actually look into the meaning of the message that she's trying to send, even now, I think she's come out with new music and she's like, just be you. She's always been that. Again, she's unapologetically herself. And I like 100%. That about Becky. She is a bit of a different kind of kooky person, but she also is very real. And I like that about Gaga. That's what kind of stood out to me about Gaga. But they're just some women that I know. Just anyone else on the top of your brain that you want to talk about before we talk about some other ladies?
In music?
Or just in general, in entertainment world. Even wrestling. I mean, sure.
Just trying to think.
I mean, women in wrestling, by the way, guys, everyone knows the story of that, but it is pretty cool to see women on a mainstream scale just...
It's dope.
Be the top. I mean,
we
just got done with a pay-per-view and they were... I mean, some people were talking about that main event for different reasons, but they still main evented a pay-per-view.
Get off it. They main evented. It's all good. I think the only other woman is old school women. I grew up watching classic films. Oh. And Judy Garland was my idol as a kid.
They just made a movie about her, didn't they?
Yes, they did, with Renee Zellweger. Yes. Yeah, and she won for Best Actress at the Oscars, and she was unbelievable. Yeah. I don't know. I just loved Judy Garland as a kid, and like Barbara Streisand and Grace Kelly. And, oh my God. It just classic movie stars in a time where women were not paid the same at all.
No, we talk about it now, but even, oh my God, I couldn't imagine what it would be like back then.
Yep.
But some other people in my own life that have really, I think it would be reminiscent to not shout out our mothers, because they're the first lady you learn to love, and it's the first love of your life is your mum. So I have to shout out to my mum, who I'm not going to go into detail because it's private matter, but she has been an absolute fucking warrior this year, and she's currently on holidays up on the Gold Coast here in Australia, going to all the theme parks, all the Disney stuff, everything, and she's just up with my stepdad and my little brother, just 2 weeks away where she doesn't have to think. And Queen knows that she's been she's had a bit of a rough time, so she's on holidays at the moment.
Shout out to your mom.
Nicole, much love for everyone that wants to know her name. It is Nicole. But she's just
I'm gonna call her Mama Josh.
Yeah, Mama Josh.
Mama Reverb.
She is just one of a kind. But it is our first love in a lot of ways. Is our mum, and they teach you how to love. Really, they teach you what you want a woman to be. I guess in a boy's perspective is that I want to fall in love with someone that is my mum, really, because she's just the best lady on the planet. So shout out to both of our mums. I'm sure you could probably echo that statement.
Yes, I can. Shout out to my mom. My mom is a complicated lady, Mama Queen, complicated lady. Her and I haven't always had the best of terms, but I will say that when the chips are down, I always want my mom.
Yeah.
And no matter what we're going through, I always call my mom first, no matter what's going on.
They always know what to say.
When I'm sick, when I'm upset, when I'm happy, my first call is to my mom.
Oh, when you're sick? Oh my God.
When I'm sick,
please help me.
I was recently
like I'm gonna die.
I know. I was recently in the hospital because I had this awful stomach virus and I was dehydrated so bad, and it was awful. So I was in the hospital. I'm like crying, and Mr. Queen goes, "What's wrong with you?" I'm like, "I want my mom."
Yeah, it doesn't matter how old you are.
You are 33 years old. Get it together. And I'm like, no.
You know when you're sick and you just feel like the world is ending, and you're just like, no one, especially a significant other, if they come in a distance of you and say anything, you're like, if you don't go away, I'm gonna backhand you. Just get away from me. I'm in agony. Just get away. I want mum. That's just
I know. I don't want anybody else. Goodbye. She needs to bring me chicken soup and hold my hand, okay?
Yes. Oh my God. Shout out to mums. Mums Thanks, everywhere. Mommy. Good job, mums. Other people that have made a huge impact in my life that I don't think get enough credit are teachers that are, especially in your high school years, you're molding into a person. And I think the right teacher, but also the wrong teacher can do really bad things. But the right teacher, especially, I had a lot of, you even mentioned before, there's the ratio between male and female teachers is probably tipped towards females more. I definitely had more female teachers than male teachers. But I think teachers are very underrated, very underappreciated a component of a child's life, because you're spending 5 days a week with them, especially in primary school up until we call it. I don't know what you call it over there. What's primary school called over there? It's like grade 1 to grade 6.
Elementary school.
Yeah, that's what you call it there. But it is a very big part of you, and I think a teacher. So shout out to all the teachers that I had that did the right thing for me, knew how to every kid is different, and I think what separates a good teacher from a great teacher is realizing that. Because some teachers are just very strict in the way they do, and that doesn't always work. I agree. So I think shout out to teachers, and specifically the female teachers that I had in my life, because they helped me a lot. I had some of my favorite teachers in the world that I had, especially in high school. The ones that sat me down and actually helped me. Because I was I'm terrible at math, everybody. Math is not my strong point. I barely passed. Like, I was on that line of like, is he going to fail or is he going to pass? And this teacher that I had in like grade 9 or 10 got me past the line. I just got past there, but she got me to pass. So that's, shout out to her.
All right. Shout out to her.
I would have failed math. I'm terrible at math. I'm great at like English and performing arts stuff. Shocker. I was just great at all of that kind of stuff, but math, whew, boy, not my strong suit. Don't ask me to add anything up. Terrible at all my multiplication and all of that. Math was not my thing. I wasn't the smartest egg in the bunch. But yeah, shout out to all the teachers that do all that, because I think they're very important, especially for you growing up, Queen. Would you agree with that statement?
Sure, I would. Mm-hmm. Absolutely right. Listen, there's been a lot of people in my life that have guided me the right way.
Yeah, a lot of people in my life that have done, and just women are kick-ass. Okay, I just want to.
They are.
Women's History Month is a great time to just say women are just They can be bad son of a bees, and I mean that in a good way. Trust me, guys. They are 100% that bitch when they want to be, and I just really love the women like that in my life. And I'm glad I surrounded myself with women like that in my life, and men like that in my life, just people like that in my life, because I think it's very important to do that. And I'm glad I've grown up that way, and I'll hammer that message home until the day I die, is that we're all equal. In closing though, Queen, true equality, what does that look like to you? I know it's a loaded question.
It's a hard one. I think true equality would mean to me that people are treated equally, they are considered equally for positions, for opportunities, for anything to do with jobs or college or whatever it is that they're looking for, that they're all considered equally. I would see laws in place that would respect the equality of the human race, no matter what we decide to do with our bodies, with our religion, with our thoughts, with our whatever. As long as you're not harming anybody, I think that people should live and let live. And that to me would be true equality, where I could walk down the street and I can turn on the news and I wouldn't have to see hate crimes. And I wouldn't have to see, I would get to see a woman president. I would get to see a LGBTQ representation, maybe as a leader of our nation or throughout all of our Congress, all of our legislative branch and the Supreme Court, everywhere and anywhere that a person wants to be, they could be. That would be true equality for me.
I 100% agree. I think the news is hate always shines through for some weird reason. We always focus on the negative instead of the positive, which is, I guess, just what's installed in our brains at this point. We see hate before we see, you could get 99 messages of positivity, and that one that's a little bit negative, you're going to dwell on and you're going to focus on, you're going to give the most attention to, which can be a very dangerous place for a mind to go. I could just imagine what that would be like. I was like that as a teenager, so it's just, yeah, I agree with you, and I just want all of that. I just want true equality in this world where we treat people based on merit of person instead of merit of gender. It doesn't matter. I just want that to not matter anymore. We'll get there one day, but it's going to take some time. But all in all, we've come so far. And in the year 2020, we're in a better spot than we were in 40 years ago, 50 years, even 30 years ago in a weird sense. It just continues to evolve. And I think things like we talked about, like with Me Too and not being quiet about it. There has to be a time when we have to talk about it, and it needs to be pretty consistent. Otherwise, people do forget, because it's very easy for people to forget about things. What's in the news today is not necessarily what's going to be in the news tomorrow. So I think people got to make their voices heard and really stand up for equality, because I think it's one of the most important issues in the world. And just remember, people, just because you have this level of equality in the place you live doesn't mean a person has that where they live, because not all places, Australia and America are very similar in the sense of we're in the Western world, so we can kind of be like, we've got a pretty good sense of what it is, but there's other countries in this world which do not have that, and I hope we can get past all of it, but it's going to take some time. But I'm just glad to be in the spot I am and in the mindset I am, and pretty sure we're pretty similar in that sense, Queen. So,
we are.
All in all, it's pretty damn. I think I'll let you say it, but I think it would be pretty damn good to be a woman in 2020.
It's feeling pretty good. I love being a woman. I wouldn't trade it. No offense. I would like to pee standing up, though.
It's pretty damn good.
That.
Trust me.
I would like that.
Although not when it's like 3 a.m. and you're like half asleep and you're like, oh God, I gotta pee.
No, that part sucks.
And you just like, oh.
Like, I would like to be able to pee standing up. That would be the only thing I would like.
Every girl I talk to always says it's the first thing they would want to do. And I'm like,
the first thing I want to do if I could switch bodies with a male one day, the first thing I would do is pee standing up.
Damn.
100%.
And see, it's just so, I guess, white male privilege here, guys. Male privilege. I just get to do it, so it's normal. I've peed sitting down before. I've peed sitting down. It's a weird experience.
It's not fun,
It's
especially in
weird.
public restrooms. Like, I just want to be able to, well, whip it out and do what I need to do and then put it back.
I hate public restrooms. Yuck. It's
Oh my God, it's the worst.
It's the
Try
worst.
squatting. Oh my
No,
God.
thank you.
Thigh workout.
Not gonna lie to you, being on a long road trip and just being hey, can you pull over the car for a minute? Because I just need to take a whiz. You know, that's
jealous. So jealous.
So suck on that, Queen.
Oh, fine. I'll just go cry.
Alrighty, Queens. So this, we're recording about a week before, but if you've got your future goggles in the words of Kevin on. Anything you want to promote coming up on Queen's Court that you would like to? I know you're doing some stuff for Women's History Month, but by the time I release this, would that already be out?
Well, surprise! I'm doing an entire month of Women's History celebration. Yes. So they could always go back and listen to that episode which dropped, which is of course in celebration of Women's History Month, all about women's wrestling and women wrestling Twitter and podcasts. But what's coming out for them and probably dropping the same day as dropping this is a Queenie Suggests episode with the Dead Ass Girls podcast.
Ooh, yes.
So that's an all-female, led show. And I talked to Jizzy from there. And
shout out to that
super fun. I mean, let me tell you, it's amazing. So it's an awesome chat. And then at the end of the month, I will be having the one, the only Miss Phoenix AEW herself, Amy, coming to the castle to talk the AEW women's roster. So that's what's coming up on Queen's Court.
And it's, of course, Mania season. And
yeah, get ready. Queenie's turning 1. Josh, I have a birthday. Like, what's going on?
That castle's going to have some candles on it, I feel, because we need to have that little party. You know what I'm saying? Listen to some Lizzo, eat some cake. Hell yes, please. Sign me up. I love a good birthday cake.
You can come to my party.
Okay. What's your favorite birthday? What's your favorite kind of cake? Go-to cake.
Okay, so my birthday cake every year is Devil's Food chocolate cake. Milk chocolate frosting with peanut M&Ms.
Damn.
When I tell you it's the best, it's the best. I also love like a vanilla yellow cake with raspberry filling in the center. With white chocolate. Get out of here.
I'm a basic white boy, so I like my red velvet cake with just vanilla frosting.
Do you like cream cheese frosting or like vanilla frosting?
Just vanilla frosting and then like a cream in the middle. That's what you cut it open, you got that. So you cut it and it's like it's the red, then the white, then the red again. I'm basic white boy, but I'm fine with it.
Listen, I love cake in general, like German chocolate cake,
funfetti
cake.
It's really
sign me up.
Ice cream cake. I'll have some ice cream cake, sure. I like a bit of ice cream cake.
I think the only cake I don't like is carrot cake. I'm not a huge fan.
No, carrot cake is not good. Carrot cake is not cake. Let's not even get into that.
That's a vegetable posing as a dessert.
We don't want that. Ew, vegetables, gross. Yuck. On that note, where can we find? Well, everyone should know where they find you on Twitter, but where can we find you on Twitter? And hell, even plug your Insta.
Oh, well, thanks, Boo. Well, you can find me on Twitter at the Queen of Any, and my Insta is at X the Queen of Any.
Yeah, we put up some nice little Instagram stories. I usually add some music to it.
We stand each other.
Yeah, we do. We always put each other in our stories.
I'm your hype woman, and you're my hype man.
I have that. I put on Twitter yesterday, so in a week ago in Futureland, put up this GIF. Everyone know the GIF of Jim and Pam from The Office high-fiving each other of course, at the same time from a distance. That's what I could imagine Queen would be doing as she's posting about me and I'm posting about her. So we're just giving each other a nice little air high five because we're just constantly complimenting each other all day anyway. Usually.
So true.
Not
Josh normally goes, "Oh my God, I know."
Yeah, that's usually me. That Alexa Bliss gif. Sign me up. It's next to that thank you from Amy Poehler in Parks and Rec. Leslie knows.
Yes.
They're my two frequently used gifs.
It's a good one.
I mean, not mad at all. So, of course, you're listening to this on the Josh Robinson 00 Network. Tomorrow, you will catch Brothers by Law's debut episode with me and my near brother-in-law, my sister's fiance, Ryan Madden, and we're going to be literally just being complete and utter idiots for an entire hour because that's literally the communication we have when we talk to each other. We're best friends, so you can imagine what we're going to talk about, pop culture and all of that kind of stuff. We got some cool stuff lined up for that, so you can catch that on Thursdays. You can catch that tomorrow, of course. And I hope you're enjoying the Josh Robinson 00 Network. It's a risk, but it's an adventure that I'm excited to go down because there's many things that I can kind of do with this and just kind of owning my shit, being a little bit more confident with myself, because I think that's important. Even in Women's History Month, I think it's just being confident and owning what you are, and just
you go, Glen Coco.
Yes, and for you, Glen Coco. The next time that we have, I'm in the castle, or that you're on the Josh Robinson Show or any of my other shows, I think we need to have a nice little Mean Girls chat, because that movie is iconic. Absolutely iconic, that movie.
I feel like we have to, right?
I mean, we could probably recite that movie word for word by script. I've watched it that many times and I never get sick of it. Isn't that weird? What a movie, though. But until next week on the Josh Robinson Show, I hope you have a lovely, wonderful, wonderful day. And Queen usually ends this with her shows. Queen, what do you usually end your shows with? It's a nice little. It's very Ellen DeGeneres.
Yes, it is. And please be kind to one another.
Please, everybody, do what Queen says. Please be kind to one another. Peace out, everyone.